Board of Zoning Appeals for October 23rd, 2025. Roll call, please.
Burrell?
Here.
Fernandez?
Here.
Kutsenko?
Here.
Next on our agenda, we have the approval of the minutes of, it will be August 21st, 2025, and September 18th, 2025. Do I have a motion for that?
Motion to approve?
In a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Burrell?
Yes.
Fernandez?
Yes.
Kutsenko?
Yes.
Next on our agenda is reports, resolutions, and communications. Do we have anything from staff?
Nothing from staff, thank you.
Anything from the board? Thank you. So we're going to go on to the hearings. We have several petitions. Some were withdrawn, some were continued. Petition CU-37-25, Built LLC, Madeline Sanders was withdrawn. Petition continues to the November 20th meeting is AA-17-22, Joe Kemp Construction LLC and Blackwell Construction, Inc. CU-33-24, Het Rentals LLC. CU-33-25, Weehee Engineers, St. Remy HOA, also continued. V-42-25, Gray Star Development Central LLC, also continued. V-44-25, Foreign Auto Connect, also continued. And lastly, on the continued are V-45-25, Apostolic Church of Jesus Christ, also continued. The petitions we're going to hear tonight will start with CU-V-32-25, Spring Point Architects. May I have the petitioner come forward? Yes, staff report, please. Sorry.
Okay, I'm David Brantez, zoning planner and GIS analyst. So today we're looking at conditional use and variance CU-V-32-25, and this is at 312 South Arbutus Drive, and the petitioner is Spring Point Architects, and the owner is Jeff Shibley. So the two things that we're looking at are the conditional use to allow a dwelling, a fourplex in the R4 residential urban zoning district. And then the petitioner is also requesting a variance from the tree preservation standards in R4 as well. So this gives you the location between 3rd and Atwater there on Arbutus, pretty close to IU. The lot is 7,500 square feet. The comprehensive plan designation is Indiana University, as it's adjacent to the university. And the existing house there is a single-family home, and this has been approved by the HPC for demolition delay, as it's a historically contributing structure. So this is the proposed site plan. This site is going to have a fourplex on it that will have a maximum of 12 bedrooms, as is consistent with the requirements for a fourplex here. And the parking will be moving from the front to the back, as is required. And we have determined that it has a closed canopy on it, so that was reviewed by the senior environmental zoning planner, Rachel Johnson, and she found that there was some closed canopy there. They're required to retain some amount of that closed canopy, and this was found to be challenging due to multiple features on the site, which we'll get into later. But they do propose, as you can see on the site plan, a remediation of those large canopy trees on the interior to make up for that. So moving on to the conditional use first. So far, this we found that it complies with all the standards here in the UDO and any other applicable regulations. The owner does not have any NOVs on hand, and they did make an effort to reach out to the neighborhood association and made themselves available for a comment period, even though a meeting was not able to be held, because there was not enough of an interest from the neighborhood to have a meeting here. They did make themselves available for comments and did not receive any. Moving on to the next criteria. It is consistent with the comprehensive plan designation, and it does move the parking into the alley as is required. This is an example of infill, higher density, close to the campus, which the adjacent comprehensive plan designation for those for the area just to the south does call for some higher density here. So it's a good location to have more units. And as far as utilities, it has existing utility connections at the single-family home that is there, and we haven't found any issues with the proposed connections here. So as far as adverse impacts goes, the property does contain sections of tree coverage that we talked about earlier that are subject to the tree and forest preservation requirements. So a variance is being requested from this. There's no excessive destruction of natural or scenic features, though. And as I mentioned, the house is designated as contributing, but it's not in a historic district. Demolition delay DD 2523 has been approved already by the Historic Preservation Commission. So no adverse impacts are expected to be found in the construction of this fourplex, and no additional nuisances are expected here. A benefit is that the parking will be moved to the alley, so that comes further into compliance, which is what the code is asking for here. And no concerns were expressed by any adjacent property owners. And there is no phasing associated. Moving on to the variance. It's not expected to be injurious to the general welfare of the neighborhood, and there's no overall impact to the safety of the property. It's also not expected to impact the use and value of the area adjacent to the property. The petitioner does propose to plant those 6 large canopy trees around the new structure, which minimizes the impact. And lastly, the strict application of the terms of the UDO we found to result in practical difficulties in that the redevelopment of the property was restricted by the location of the current trees. It was a relatively small house, so those trees were in a pretty tricky location to work with, especially given that the parking did need to come off the rear alley. So they're constrained on multiple fronts here. And there were also trees like directly in front of the house as well. So this development is subject to the use-specific standards that have guidance in regards to architecture and constructing a more unified block face So it makes sense, rather than to set the house way back behind those trees that were in front of the house, to move the development forward a little bit and find a new place for those new canopy trees, as shown in the remediation plan. So the department recommends that the Board of Zoning Appeals adopt the proposed findings and approve CU-V-32-25 with the following 4 conditions. The conditional use approval is limited to the design shown and discussed in the packet. This conditional approval requires that the petitioner pass a rental inspection from hand and procure a rental permit for all units that will be rented. And third, that 2 large street trees or equivalents are required along South Arbutus Drive. And 4, that 6 large canopy trees are required on the interior of the property as shown in the proposed remediation plan. And with that, that concludes my staff report. Thank you.
Thank you. So now we have a presentation by the petitioner. You have 20 minutes total. Have you signed in? And say your name, and I'll swear you in.
My name is Barry Clapper. I'm from Spring Point Architects.
All right. Do you swear or affirm that your testimony that you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Go ahead. You have 20 minutes.
Fabulous. I just want to start off by thanking David for his help in ushering this project through the process. The owner, Jeff Shively, is also here this evening with us, so if there's any questions for him, he is available. Just a few additional comments. In thinking about the architectural approach to this project, we recognize this neighborhood feel, and it being directly south of the university, we wanted a project that fit in well with the streetscape and the surrounding existing homes. And that's why this appears as one large house, even though it contains 4 actual townhouse units. So the units, 2 are oriented to the street, and the other 2 are oriented toward the alley. So the shared walls are perpendicular to each other rather than parallel, which would be more of a row house configuration. So it was our goal to try and keep the height down as much as possible, and really, as David talked about, align the front of this house with the other existing homes. The original house is pushed significantly back off the street. So I just wanted to highlight those decisions, and also add a point about the neighborhood. This neighborhood is not active, so we decided to have a virtual meeting to which no one came. But we did have some interest from one of the adjacent property owners who had wanted to know about some view angles and stuff like that, and so we were able to provide information to them. But that was all that we heard back from the neighborhood. Do you have anything that you want to add at this point? So we're here for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. And you have the remainder to answer to anything we have or add anything you would like at the end. All right. Well, so do we have any questions for staff or petitioners by the board?
Not for me.
Nope. Okay, we're good. So we'll open up to public comment in here or online.
If we have anyone online who would like to make a comment, you can raise your hand. It looks like we have one Des King so far. So you can go ahead and unmute if you'd like.
Hi, everybody. Hear me okay?
Hi, I'm going to swear you in. Can you say your name, please?
Yes, this is Des King.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
I just wanted to take a few minutes tonight to speak about the petition in question. I am a former resident of this address, 312 South Arbutus Drive. My husband and I were tenants in that property for almost 6 years. Just recently became homeowners and moved away. And I just had a few concerns about the petition and wanted to see if I could get those addressed, because even though I no longer live in the neighborhood, yeah, just have concerns about the density of the housing. First of all, the property is situated on a very narrow street. It's 2-lane at best when there are no cars, and I understand the property will be 4 units with 3 bedrooms each. So we're looking at 12 tenants in the property, and I believe the packet said that the parking would be in the rear and it would allow for 2 parking spaces. But if we're being realistic, that will be 12 additional cars on the street. And having lived there for almost 6 years, that's my husband and I were not students, but it's a heavily student neighborhood, and that was fine. But they have lots of gatherings, and you know, we witnessed lots of parking on the streets and on the wrong side of the street. And when it would snow, the snowplow could not get through because people were parked on the wrong side of the street. So I just find it problematic that we're introducing 12 additional people to what David highlighted as a currently small house on the plot. So I am in favor of dense housing. I think we need more housing, more affordable housing. But I think a 4-plex is a bit of a stretch here for this parcel. So I'm in favor of it, just on a smaller scale. I would also like to add, and it's not in the packet, and so just as a caveat, living there for 5 years, the property does flood quite a bit. I think Bloomington houses are famous for basement flooding, but the proposed rear of the property, where an unimproved alley leads into the yard, that floods quite a bit. And then the parcel across the street that is vacant, nothing on it, that's owned by IU. When they demolished the house about 6 years ago, there was substantial more flooding to the property. So not really a concern of mine anymore that I don't live there, but just as a caveat. And so if you're going to have folks parking in the rear, maybe something to examine. But yeah, want to end on a positive note. I do believe in dense housing, but I think we need to, it needs to be considered to be a smaller project. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else? Any other public comment?
Yeah, I'm not seeing anybody else. If there is anybody else online that would like to speak, please use the raise hand function and we can recognize you, or send a message via chat to the host. Yeah, we're not seeing anybody else online.
All right, so since there's no more public comment, we're back to the board for any questions or any comments before a final action.
You don't have any questions?
All right. Yes. And so before the final action, we can give the representative the leftover time they have. If they would like to say anything.
I was going to ask one of the representatives here from planning just to talk, just to give a brief synopsis of the goals of R4 and its location vis-a-vis IU and that sort of thing.
Yeah, certainly. So as the board may or may not be aware, there are certain uses within some of the residential districts, duplexes, triplexes, and fourplexes that are listed as conditional uses. The R4 district is one of the few districts where triplexes and fourplexes were listed as conditional uses. Certainly as we look at increased housing and opportunities for that, locations that are close to campus, especially within walking distance of campus, certainly make ideal locations for density and the appropriate location of that. In regards to parking, there's certainly a mixed range of opinions on parking. When you are this close to campus, the hope is that, folks are walking to where they are going. The UDO does have a minimum number of parking spaces, which is 0.5 spaces per unit. So our fourplex 2 is the minimum, which they have provided. There is on-street parking that is allowed along the west side. It is a residentially zoned parking area, so the residents or the tenants here could get a parking permit if they had cars and park those along the west side of the street. So we certainly want to try to promote infill development adjacent to existing facilities, which this location certainly is. And as I mentioned, it's in very close proximity to campus, so it presents an excellent opportunity for housing in relation to where the folks are going oftentimes. So we did find that this meets the requirements of the UDO, the use-specific requirements, the conditional use requirements. So as we mentioned in the staff report, we are recommending approval since it meets the criteria that are in the UDO.
Thank you. Anything else? You're good? Okay. Any comments or questions from the board?
I don't have questions, but if no one else has, I'm happy to make a motion that we adopt the proposed findings and approve CUV 3225 with the 4 recommended conditions.
I second.
Thank you. So we have a motion and a second.
Yep.
So I will call roll. Burrell,
Yes.
Fernandez,
Yes.
Kutsenko.
Yes.
Petition is approved.
So it is passed. Congratulations. Thank you. Now we're going to move on to the next case, case V-39-25. May I have a staff report, please?
Yes, thank you. So this is a request from the petitioner Urton Qualified Opportunity Fund. So this is for a petition on North Morton Street, 601 North Morton. The petitioner is here tonight to request a variance from use-specific standards requiring ground floor dwelling units that are within 20 feet of the front property line to be constructed with the first floor elevated a minimum of 3 feet above the adjacent sidewalk grade to allow for the use dwelling, multifamily, to allow for construction of 1 ground floor dwelling unit in the mixed-use downtown within the downtown core overlay district. So I realize that was a lot, and so I'll just kind of talk a little bit about some of the regulations that have changed within the UDO. So the board may have heard previous petitions where the language within the UDO was simply for ground floor dwelling units in the downtown. They had to be located 20 feet behind the front of the building. So as we've worked over the years to try to amend the UDO to allow more flexibility and give greater allowances for dwelling units within the ground floor of the downtown, as we've often cited, sometimes with the challenges of dwelling units on the ground floor within the downtown and their proximity to sidewalks or closeness to those sidewalks, the challenge is having those living spaces right up along a sidewalk, the kitchens, the living areas, whatever, which don't present a lot of privacy for the individuals within there, nor do they present really a appropriate streetscape design where you just have that lack of separation. So we had an amendment last year that gave 2 additional allowances or gave more flexibility for ground floor dwelling units within the downtown. One of those was to introduce criteria that could allow for those where the ground floor was elevated 3 feet above the sidewalk elevation, so that you don't have that presence of the dwelling units right on the sidewalk. You've got a little bit of vertical separation. The other criteria that was put in there was to allow for the units if they're more than if the building is more than 20 feet back, to allow for, again, that separation horizontally in that particular situation. So what is before the board tonight is for a location that is known as the Showers Administration Building. So this is at the northwest corner of 10th and Madison. And so this is a locally designated historic building. As I mentioned, this is the former, what was part of the Showers Furniture Building. It was known as the Administration Building. And so it is a locally designated building. It's been designed and built and used predominantly as commercial space. However, on the far west side of the building, there's an approximately 17-foot by 58-foot section of the building, which you can see in these photos. It's a 1-story portion of the building, has very limited access or use from the inside main portion of the building itself. So it's kind of separated internally with very limited access, so it is really kind of challenged in terms of its use in combination with the commercial use of the building itself. So the petitioner has come up with a plan for this that has been reviewed by the Historic Preservation Commission to take this somewhat segregated building that is on the backside and turn that into one dwelling unit. As you can see, it does have one window on the south side facing 10th Street. So with the addition, they would be adding a second story with 2 windows on the second floor. There will not be any changes on the second or on the first floor along the south side of the building on 10th Street. That was certainly very important with the Historic Preservation Commission review of this to preserve that historic integrity, but allow for the addition that is architecturally different. So that is a component that is important oftentimes with additions to locally designated historic buildings, to have that difference so that you're not trying to mimic the existing historic building and it's architecturally different. So the addition would be on the west side of the building. It would allow for 1 dwelling unit with 2 bedrooms. So as I mentioned, the particular building, the section of the building has very limited access from the inside of the building. The addition would feature a door on the north side of the building that would face a parking lot. So this site contains both the administration building as well as a parking lot on the north side of it. So this door would face that parking area. So the petitioner is requesting, as I mentioned in the initial opening, is requesting a variance from the specific use, specific restrictions that state that ground floor dwelling units that are within 20 feet of the front of the building have to be elevated 3 feet above. So with the local designation of this property, it's obviously very challenging to do that within the historical context of the building itself without doing significant alteration of the building, which kind of contradicts with the Historic Preservation Commission's goals to preserve the historic integrity of the building. And so there was a lot of challenges and peculiar condition with this property and this building itself, both in the historic designation of it, as well as this particular section of the building that, as I mentioned several times, has very limited accessibility from the inside of the building itself. So with that, the granting of this variance will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, or general welfare. There are no variances that are being granted from the building design or from any safety components. This particular building in this area will have very little street presence on 10th Street. So as I mentioned at the beginning of this, the intent for the separation is to create a streetscape and design that is both respectful of the privacy of the individuals within the building as well as the presence on the street. So with the limitations of the historic building in regards to what can be done to the outside, the presence or the kind of separation of the unit from just the window component itself achieves kind of what the goals of the UDO were looking for in terms of the privacy and the streetscape design. And then, as I mentioned, the strict application of the terms of the UDO would present practical difficulties because they would contradict with the historic designation of the property that severely limits what can really be done within the interior of that. So we are recommending that the board adopt the proposed findings and approve this variance V-39-25 with the one condition that is listed in staff's report. And I'm happy to answer any questions once the petitioner has had an opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Eric. May I have the petitioner come forward?
So I believe that they are present online. I'm not sure which entity online. If the petitioner for this is available online, please use the raise hand function so that I can recognize you and unmute you. I'm not seeing anybody raising their hand. Once again, if there's somebody online that is representing the petitioner for this petition, 601 North Morton Street, if you could please use the raise hand function so we can recognize you. I apologize. Apparently, I'm not seeing anybody online. So what I would recommend is the
Can we
board
continue?
make a motion to move this to the end of the agenda, and I'll try to see if I can reach out to the petitioner and see what's going on.
All right, let's do that.
I'll move that we move this petition to the back of the line for tonight.
I have a second.
Second.
Okay, thank you. So we'll move this. I just reached out to the petitioner. I did receive an email 3 minutes ago that they were having trouble getting online from their location. So we'll move this to the end of the agenda and then go on to the next petition. And so the next petition.
Do we have to vote for this or not?
Oh yes, I'm so sorry. Trying to manage too many things at once here. So there was a motion to adjust the agenda, and I'm sorry, who made that motion?
I did.
John?
Okay. And second was
Leslie?
Leslie. Okay, thank you very much. Burrell,
Yes.
Fernandez,
Yes.
Kutsenko.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. I apologize for that. So the next petition is a request from Don Cowden Foundations for a property on West 3rd Street for 2500 and 2506 West 3rd Street. The petitioner is here tonight to request a variance from minimum landscape area and maximum impervious surface coverage standards to allow for a new restaurant use in the mixed-use corridor zoning district. So this property is on West 3rd Street at the northwest corner of West 3rd and Kimball. It's zoned mixed-use corridor and has been developed with a restaurant as well as a multi-tenant center as well as several surface parking lots. So the petitioner is here to request for a redevelopment of this site to allow for a new use for a Chick-fil-A restaurant. So the board did hear an approval or a petition for this site several months ago, seeking several variances. The board approved a variance from parking maximum number with that petition, but denied several other variances. So the petitioner has come back tonight with a modified site plan that has moved the building to the southeast corner of the property. So by adjusting the location of the building on the property, that took away several of the variances that had been previously sought. And so the petitioner is only here tonight seeking a variance from maximum impervious surface coverage and minimum landscape area requirements. So as I mentioned, the building or the property is seeking redevelopment here and would still have access from Kimball Drive along the east side of the site. As the board heard at the last hearing, and I would imagine we'll probably hear a little bit more tonight as well, the petitioner gave a parking demand study with the last petition, as well as gave a lot of testimony regarding the need for drive-through use and stacking spaces, which some members may certainly be aware of some of the challenges at the existing location of traffic certainly backing up onto public streets. So safety was certainly a concern, and making sure that the use was able to provide parking on the site for the tenant or for the resident or the users as well as the employees. So that desire for stacking space has created a lot of the challenges that the petitioner has been able to resolve. The petition does include one property that is in the Monroe County planning jurisdiction. That particular property that's at the northeast side of the site is not part of this petition or factored into any of our review criteria. That is a separate site that is being evaluated by the Monroe County Planning Department. So we are only looking at the portion that is within the city to ensure compliance with the portions of this property that are in the city itself. So the property within the city meets all of the setback requirements for the building, for parking area, for landscaping. And so the petition site still has access from Kimball Drive through this property that's in the county. Will flow into the site to the west. And then circle around with the pickup window on the west side of the building. So all of the drive-through lanes meet the setback requirements. They are even with the face of the building as allowed. They are able to meet all of the landscaping requirements, as well as all of the bicycle parking requirements. So they are here tonight to request a variance, as I mentioned, from the minimum landscaped area requirements. So the MC zoning district requires a minimum of 40% landscaped area. So the petitioner is requesting a variance to allow 33% landscaped area. The maximum impervious surface coverage allowance within the MC zoning district is 60%. And so the petitioner is requesting a variance to allow 67% landscaped area. No, I'm sorry, I said that backwards. 67% impervious surface coverage. So the petitioner is just slightly over in both of those two areas. And these do lie outside of the minor modification allowance within the UDO. In case the board is wondering why this small amount wasn't able to be addressed through a different process. It does exceed what is allowed for a minor modification, so this does have to come to the board for approval to allow for those reductions. As I kind of mentioned in the report, the site meets all of the other development standards, all of the landscaping, all of the setback requirements. The granting of the approval to allow for this slight increase allows for the site to adequately accommodate stacking movement on the site, turning movements through the site, parking for the site as a whole. So with them being able to meet grading or stormwater detention requirements as well, they have submitted plans to City of Bloomington Utilities. They have not identified any major problems with meeting any of their requirements so far. So we did not find that there would be any injuries to the public health, safety, morals, or general welfare. In addition, in regards to impacts on the use and value adjacent to the area, as we've discussed with this particular use and the information that's been submitted, they do have a very high demand and need for parking and stacking space, and so this allows for all of those movements to be accomplished within the interior of the site, thus reducing any impacts on the use and value adjacent to the property, to the adjacent properties. And then the strict application of the terms of the UDO does present practical difficulties, and we see this oftentimes with corner lots. And the dual setback requirements and frontage requirements and limitations And certainly, we heard a lot of that testimony with the previous petition, but the petitioners were able to find a way to modify the site, and they're designed to meet almost all of the UDO requirements. So as I mentioned, the corner location as well as the demonstrated parking needs and stacking needs for this site do present a challenge and a hardship in meeting the UDO requirements. So the granting of the variance to allow for this slight increase in impervious surface coverage and a slight decrease in minimum landscape area would be relieved by the granting of these variances. So with that, the department is recommending that the Board of Zoning Appeals adopt the proposed findings and approve the 2 variances with the 2 conditions that are listed in the staff's report. And I'm happy to answer any questions once the petitioner has had an opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Please sign in and state your name, please.
My name is Joe Vavrina with HR Green.
Do you swear and affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You have 20 minutes.
Thank you. First, I'd like to thank staff and Eric, for helping us and kind of walk through and get to the plan that we're at. I know there was a lot of challenges with the last plan, a lot of variance requests, and really our goal was to try and eliminate the majority of those, and I think we were able to accomplish that, with exception of the max impervious as well as the minimum landscape requirement. And really, that's just a function of trying to meet all of the different demands that Chick-fil-A has with regards to the number of stacks that we need in the drive-through lane, as well as the parks that we need to run all the different service channels that building has to service, as well, and mainly from the drive-through standpoint, keeping all the traffic on site so nothing really bleeds off-site. As you can see, the drive-through lane is fairly long. That's designed by purpose, is to keep all the traffic on site. Really, that's all I really had. The only additional modification I wanted to make, I think one of the conditions referenced the variance that was approved last time with regards to the Max Park. The only thing that was noted in there is that I think it mentioned any stalls beyond 15 had to be constructed out of permeable pavement. This new plan, that max allowed parking spaces up to 20. So if we can just amend it that any stalls beyond 20 parking spaces would be permeable pavement, and our site plan currently shows that. We currently have 32 proposed, 12 of those are in permeable pavement. And before I went into I got a little early into my presentation, I am joined here tonight by Brent Edmondson from Chick-fil-A. He's the principal development lead for this project, and we also have representation from the property owner as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else is going to speak tonight then?
If there's questions for these gentlemen, absolutely. And
But otherwise, you're okay now
Yeah.
at this point? Yeah, well, you still have 18 minutes left to speak if necessary, okay?
Sounds good.
All right. All right,
I have a question for staff.
go ahead.
Okay, so when it says approved per terms and conditions of zoning appeals, KSV 1225, VAR 2025-030066. So are those terms and conditions also listed in what we spoke of today, or are there any additional terms and conditions that weren't spoke of?
So the only conditions that were really relative to that previous approval were that any parking spaces over the maximum would be constructed of permeable pavers. So that number is based on what the maximum number is for this building. So as the petitioner stated, they've changed the dining area arrangement a little bit, so that maximum number is increased a little bit. So the condition still just said, anything over the maximum has to be the permeable paver. So that's not a contradiction, but the previous conditions. And then the previous condition was that it also is related to this site, this user specifically in the site plan that was submitted for that parking study for them. So
Okay.
it's not something transferable to another restaurant. It's specific to this.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, good question. Any more questions? All right, well, let's go to public comment at this time. If we have anybody in here or online that would like to comment, now it's your time.
If there is anybody online to speak to the petition for Chick-fil-A, please use the raise hand function, and we can recognize you. I'm not seeing anybody.
Okay. Well, then we're back to the BZA for any comments you might have or any final questions before a final action.
I just have a comment. I want to thank the petitioner and the planning staff for working through this. I'm always grateful when people are willing to make significant investments in our community. And I know this was a little bit challenging, but I'm really pleased that everybody was able to work through this. So thank you.
Thank you. So at this time, I'll entertain a motion.
I will move that we adopt the proposed findings and approve the variance with the conditions set forward in the staff report.
May I have a second, please?
Second.
We have a motion for approval and a second. So roll call, Burrell,
Yes.
Fernandez,
Yes.
Kutsenko.
Yes.
Petition is approved.
Congratulations. Thank you. All right, moving on. May I have the staff report for V-43-25?
There we go. Thank you. So this is a request from a petitioner for a new veterinary, emergency veterinary use for a property at 719 West 2nd Street. So the petitioner is here tonight to request a variance from maximum parking number and from landscaping standards to allow for the establishment of a new use veterinarian clinic for a property in the mixed-use medium-scale district. So this property is located on West 2nd Street, on the second side of West 2nd, and was previously used as a medical clinic, but that use was removed, and the property has sat empty for quite some time. So there is a new use that is coming in there for the business of Pitties and Pals to use this as a veterinarian clinic. So the UDO has certain subheadings within the use categories that define when a change of use happens. So the previous use as medical clinic and the proposed use of veterinarian clinic is considered a change in use because it is going between those two headings. And so the petitioner is required to bring the site into compliance with our limited compliance standards. So that would require the removal of any parking spaces over the maximum number that is allowed, as well as bring the site into compliance with any other limited compliance standards, such as landscaping, bicycle parking, et cetera. And so because this is also within the Transform and Redevelopment Opportunity Overlay District, the TRO, when it was originally proposed and incorporated into the UDO, as the BZA may or may not be aware, a previous parking garage for the hospital was preserved on the site as well to supplement all of the parking, or a lot of the parking needs within this particular area. And so the standards within the TRO had a further reduction from parking maximums of 50%. Because it wanted to encourage the use of the parking garage that was being proposed. So rather than having uses with individual surface parking lots, the goal was to promote the use of the parking garage. However, the parking garage is not currently active or able to be used, and is still probably a considerable time away from where that would be usable and accessible by anybody in the public or businesses within this area. However, the petitioner is ready to move into the site now, and so the restrictions within the UDO in regards to the maximum parking number present a severe challenge on them in terms of being able to use the site. So the UDO would only allow for 4 parking spaces on the site, not including an ADA accessible space. So this particular use would have at least 5 staff members at one time, as well as 5 exam rooms. And so the site currently has 14 parking spaces. And so given the amount of exams rooms and staff that are here on the site, the limitation of only 4 parking spaces really hinders the ability of the business to operate here. And so the petitioner is requesting a variance from the maximum parking number in order to allow for 12 parking spaces to remain on the site. There are 14 there now. One of those would be used for a dumpster. One of those would be utilized for a bike rack. So the petitioner is proposing to allow for, in essence, the parking area to remain as is. So you can kind of see here in the site photo the view from 2nd Street. The parking is along the front of the building. It's a 2-lane parking area on parking on both sides, kind of limited accessibility with just the medical clinic or the veterinarian clinic building located in the rear. So this would include the incorporation of 1 accessible unit or accessible parking space on the site. The petitioner would still be required to install landscaping on the site to the extent practical. But one of the other requirements for the UDO is when you have more than 10 parking spaces, you have to have at least 1 island within the interior of the site, and the minimum size of that island has to be the size of an adjacent parking space. So if that requirement was being met, it would take away another parking space. As I kind of mentioned there, with the number of staff members and exam rooms, the amount of parking and the need for parking on this site is very limited. Not a lot of room there to really work with. So requiring that island to be larger would further take away another space and really kind of hinder the usability of the site as a whole. So the petitioner, as I mentioned, is requesting a variance from parking maximums to allow for the 12 spaces that are shown, as well as a variance from the minimum landscaped area to not require that island to be the minimum size required. So with this, we, of course, evaluate it based on the 3 criteria. We do not find that the approval would be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, or general welfare. Allowing the 12 parking spaces would provide an amount of parking appropriate for the use based on the staff and the exam rooms, and oftentimes with medical clinics. There are people that are still waiting to get in there. So even though you've got 5 rooms, you might have people also still waiting to get into those and kind of the queuing. So the number of spaces is kind of really a bare necessity for the use. In addition, the need for those parking spaces really hinders the ability to increase the size of the island as well. So we don't find that that would be injurious, either of those variances. In relation to the use and value of the area adjacent to the property being affected in a substantially adverse manner. We don't find any adverse impacts for the granting of either of the variances. As I mentioned, it does allow for parking on the site that would be sufficient for what this use needs. And in regards to the strict application of the terms of the UDO and peculiar conditions that present a practical hardship, as I mentioned, the desires of the UDO and the transform and redevelopment opportunity overlay to utilize the parking garage and the inability of the garage to be utilized at this time presents a real hardship for the users here, as they cannot use that facility for what it was intended. So both of those present a challenge. The low number of spots here and the size of the building and the need for parking here kind of all present a challenge and a difficulty and a hardship in the use of the property. And so with that, we are recommending that the board adopt the proposed findings and approve the 2 variances with the 3 conditions that are listed in staff report. And I'm happy to answer any questions once the petitioner has had a chance to speak.
Thank you. Do we have a petitioner? Please sign in and then state your name, and I'll swear
My
you in.
name is Amy Summers Kopp.
Amy, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the whole truth, the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You have up to 20 minutes. Are you going to speak as
This is
well?
are you going to say anything, Megan, or no?
I don't know.
You're not going to speak?
I don't think I need to.
Okay, all right. If you decide to, then I can swear you in as well, okay? All
Well,
right.
first of all, we want to say thank you to Eric and David for walking us through this. This is not something we were familiar with, so it was very helpful to have some guidance, and thank you for hearing us. I think they've done a really good job of summarizing what our needs are, and so if you guys have any questions for us, we're happy to answer.
Well, thank you so much. And you can, at the end, if you need to speak, you have plenty of time.
Okay.
You still have 19 minutes. Okay? At this time, we'll go back to the board. I mean, if you have any questions to staff or petitioner?
Do you want me for public, or I do have a couple questions, but.
Yeah, we're doing questions.
I just have, understanding a little bit of the history of the back and forth on this. That's kind of the framework for my question. So in the conditions for approval, as reference to all the site improvements must be installed prior to issuance of final occupancy permit. And then condition 3 references that the petitioner will continue to work with the staff to install landscaping to the extent practical as required by the UDO. Is the landscaping installation, does that fall within the definition of site improvements?
Yes, it does.
Okay, because are people confident? I mean, when we use, that's such broad language, to the extent practical as required by the UDO. I know on the petitioner's plan, there's several spaces or areas on the plan identified for landscaping. Are we confident that doing the landscaping within those areas are going to be considered to the extent practical? Where I'm going with this is I don't want that to turn into another prolonged, back and forth over that requirement, because it's my understanding this has been going on for quite a while.
Yeah, certainly understand that. And so, just from the department's perspective, we're certainly aware of the needs of the petitioner and kind of what has been presented so far, and we're, continuing to work with them and being understanding of their needs and perhaps limitations as well. So I'd say that we're, very open to being understanding to what the extent practical means, and have not so far, been overly harsh by any means in terms of what needs to be installed. Yeah, so we're certainly willing to work with them and not be overly onerous.
Has the issue been primarily around the parking more so than the landscaping?
Yeah, so certainly, I mean, that was the main challenge, was the UDO and the language within there that required a certain amount of parking or a significant amount of parking to be removed, which then opened up the space for a lot more landscaping. Certainly the removal of the parking, and I don't want to speak for the petitioner, they can speak to this themselves. That was a heavy financial burden, the removal of the asphalt, and then carrying it with that, all of the additional landscaping. So, with the granting of the variance to allow more parking, that kind of conversely takes away the area needed for landscaping, which reduces that financial burden as well. So, several things are kind of accomplished with the granting of the variances.
Do you have a question? Just a second, Amy.
Okay.
Do you have a question for the petitioner? Otherwise, the petitioner can speak at the end.
I do have a question for the petitioner. Are you comfortable with that language?
this is new to me, so, so that was a concern to me, and there was two reasons of concern. One, it was, like you said, it was open-ended, and two, my other concern was timing of the year, because if we can't get an occupancy permit because landscaping's not in, but she's trying to open in February or so, that's gonna be a little tricky, because we're not gonna be able to get landscaping done probably between now and the time she opens. And I don't know how to address that, so.
Yeah, so I can address that a little bit from staff's perspective. So we certainly deal with that a lot this time of year. And so we allow for temporary occupancies to be given, with the understanding that, this is getting toward the end of the planting season. So oftentimes those temporary occupancies will be given until April or May or so of next year when it becomes planting season again. So they're able to utilize it. The goal is that we have an approved plan. And then some of the things that have to be delayed due to weather, are delayed until April or May or so of next year.
Does that answer your question?
It does, and for what it's worth, that process has worked well.
Okay.
My personal experience there.
Any more questions from the board for staff or the petitioner? No? So now we're going to move to public comment. If we have anybody here that would like to speak in favor or against the petition, or online, if we have anybody online.
If there is anybody online that would like to speak to the petition for 719 West 2nd Street, please use the raise hand function or send a message via chat and we can recognize you and unmute you. I'm not seeing anybody online.
Okay. Do you, for the petitioner, you have 19 minutes. Do you have anything else you'd like to share? Okay. So we're back to the board for any comments that we want to make or a final action.
I just have a quick comment. I know this one has been pretty difficult. The challenge, you're in front of the BZA because from time to time we discover that language that's included in a UDO that was adopted, 5 years ago, creates practical challenges for us, and it requires that folks go through this kind of process. It's unfortunate it's taken a long time, and I know it's been kind of difficult, but I know that David and Eric and others, they keep a good record of where there are these kind of pain points so that hopefully we can address some of these deficiencies or challenges. This is a unique site. The assumption, as Eric referenced earlier, about, you got this huge old garage, so, we all know that the reality of the development of the Hopewell site is very complicated, and it's going to take a while to get to the point where the garage is, functionally used for a regional center, which we're nowhere close to that right now, as far as I can tell. But this use in and of itself was kind of tricky in terms of the strict language of our current code, and I'm glad that the staff and you were able to work through that, because I think it's an important service for our community, and it seems like a very appropriate place to do it. We're still providing emergency services for mammals. So it's close. But I'm really appreciative of the petitioner making the investment in this neighborhood, because when the hospital moved and the city took over all this land, there's a lot of concern about what happens with a site of this magnitude, and to have private investment and uses come back into the site is really important. And you're the first new private investment in that area. So I appreciate you being the pioneers. Sometimes, the first one's it's a little bit harder, but I appreciate you sticking with it and making the investment and being prepared to provide this service to our community. And I thank Eric and the team for plowing through it and making it happen.
I wasn't in the previous meetings, I'll comment in as well. The garage, I don't know if you saw my eye roll. I'm like, if you're in an emergency vet situation, the last thing you're thinking about is parking in a garage to get your animal into a vet hospital. And maybe you'll be there for a while and you can go back to the garage. But I appreciate that you kept up the fight to keep the parking. I work for Wonder Lab. Parking is a daily problem. And the fact that you fought for the parking, I think is truly important for more businesses in the community to fight for their own parking. So kudos for that, for getting this far. And we need more vets, so thank you.
All right. With that, I will entertain a motion.
I'll propose that we adopt the proposed findings and approve V4325 ZR 2025-09-0098 with the 3 conditions included in the staff report.
Second, Leslie.
I have roll call, please.
Thank you. Burrell?
Yes.
Fernandez?
Yes.
Kutsenko?
Yes.
Petition is approved.
All right, congratulations.
So I have heard from the previous petitioner for the Sean Urton position, or
Yes.
petition. So Lucas Brown is online and should be able to speak. So we've already given the staff presentation, so we should be ready to go into the petitioner's presentation.
Can you, excuse me, could you state your name so I can swear you in, please?
Yeah, name is Lucas Brown.
All right, Mr. Brown, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yep.
You have up to 20 minutes.
Great. Sorry, I'm coming in a bit late. It's been a while since working on the claim. I'm sure Eric did a nice job presenting this project. My client here is trying to activate the backside of the administration building, which is currently basically mechanical spaces, has a boiler and other mechanical functions. The variance is asking that we have residential space on the ground level less than 3 feet above grade station for EBO. EBO is obviously moving toward allowing residential and the first floor within 20 feet of the front building or the front lot line or the front line of the street by allowing it to be 3 feet above. Based on the existing context of the historic building, that's not feasible for a number of reasons. And so we're asking for that variance to allow us to be at grade rather than 3 feet above. Please keep in mind that the vast majority of this building is commercial and does run to the street and north of the street. Additionally, this is a comment made by the Historic Preservation Commission that I think is that the kiln on the opposite end of the alley is basically activating this alley. The mill activates the alley. So, in a sense, the administration building is now also activating this alley by putting this residential space there. So this becomes kind of an active, especially with this sculpture across the street. So that's really all I have to say. And open-ended questions.
Thank you. Have any questions?
I have a question that's been nagging at me since I saw the packet. There are the old, like, pipes on the west side. Are those remaining because they're required to be remained? Are they viewed as some kind of architectural feature? I'm just very curious about why those remain in the elevations. I don't have anything against them, I'm just curious.
John, it's just part of the story of the district. I'm sure you have an affinity for those pipes like I do, especially, we worked on a powerhouse in Kill, cement, sort of connection of these buildings, sort of history of heating and cooling those days where you had a central boiler and then moving steam around the campus. So, I guess as we were moving through the Historic Preservation Commission, they seem to be really interested in maintaining pipes and maintaining the story of this district and the technology of the time. So, this is really something that kind of came out of a conversation we had with the Historic Preservation Commission, and it was something they wanted to maintain. And obviously, the mill in dealing with these pipes also left that infrastructure in place to a certain degree. That's where we live.
All right, thanks, Lucas.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board? Well, at this time, then, we're going to go to public comment. Either, there's no one here, but anybody online that would like to comment?
If there is anybody online to speak to the petition at 601 North Morton Street, please use the raise hand function, and we can recognize you. Yeah, I'm not seeing anybody online for this one.
Okay, so we're back to the BZA for any comments or a final action, and I'll entertain a motion.
I will motion for V-3925 with the conditions of the approved plans and elevations submitted be approved.
Okay, may I have a second?
Second?
Motion is to approve. Roll call, Burrell,
Yes.
Fernandez,
Yes.
Kutsenko.
Yes.
Petition is approved.
Safe travels, Lucas.
Very much. Thanks
Yeah.
for presenting the project. Sarah.
Thank you. Congratulations. Do we have any other things from staff? No? Well, we are adjourned.